All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We are back for the I Win Morning
I
Show.
win. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Danny. It is so good to see you this morning. Now, there's so many announcements, so many things to get into. I'm glad to see that we have the same color blue.
No doubt.
Today we did not plan this. However, there's something about this blue. Maybe it's a hint to the next Super Bowl champions for 2024. Who knows? However, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the I Win Morning Show on Mondays, 7:15. We are going to be moving to YouTube. I saw the Go Rihanna comment, and I was like, Rihanna had on red. We're going to get to Rihanna in a little bit. But welcome back, everyone. This is the I Win Morning Show. Now, of course, JT, the brand master, is off being busy saving the world. Both the Trawick brothers are just on the move. So JT may join us a little later. He may not. However, Dr. Danny and I are ready to bring it on today. Now,
No
Dr.
doubt.
Danny, let's go right into it. The weekend. How was your weekend?
Well, it was, eventful like for everybody else. I actually had ended up in Nashville last week. And so I was recovering from that trip over the weekend and planning my little Valentines for all of the little Valentines in my life who are big, big little people. So that's the majority of what I did. And of course, go Jets. I was watching the Super Bowl and I said, go Jets. I know who was playing and I didn't care who was playing. I'm still a lover of the Jets.
I know that's right. Well, listen, I'm always with the home team, so go Falcons. Even though we know the story behind that, right? However, congratulations to the Chiefs who did win. I
Yes.
was rooting for Philadelphia because shout out to people in Philly who I know
Yeah.
love my people in Philly. They are family. So,
Yes.
with that being said, the Super Bowl is definitely something that is being talked about from the live performances.
Go
Uh,
Dolphins.
Now, of course, Babyface, Shirley Ralph with Lift Every Voice and Sing, simply
Yes.
amazing
Yes.
renditions, and thankful that um, we are in the spaces. Thank you, to Jay-Z helping to, navigate what entertainment for the Super Bowl looks like. That still doesn't take away some of the other urgent things that need to be focused on, specifically the health and wellness of the players.
Yeah.
Making sure that they are okay. And of course, I think that it's great. We had two blacks quarterbacks that were playing against each other. We all celebrated those monuments, and it's okay to want more. Because I think that it's good that people are having conversations around ownership. We don't just need to be present, but we need to have a seat at the table. We need to have ownership on these teams, and also black coaches, head coaches on these teams. So, kudos to everyone who was present, what they have done to show signs of diversity and growth. We're giving them that. However, we know what really needs to be changed. And so there's nothing wrong with challenging those systems. So let's keep pushing for that, because we do need that. Now, everybody knows Rihanna. Rihanna's concert was yesterday. Her performance, I thought it was amazing. Ray and I both, it was the floating in the air that got me. I was like, yeah, we are really here. Like, this is probably going to be a thing now.
I didn't care about the Super Bowl. I wanted to know what the gender was for that baby. I was hoping, like, at the end it would be, the color. I said, wait.
That would have been the biggest and dopest gender reveal
no doubt.
Of a baby ever.
Yeah.
And the red could,
maybe that's a sign.
Could be close to girl. I don't know. But wishing her and A$AP Rocky the best for their family and how it's growing. But I was really, really excited to see that. And I knew it when she came up and, you saw it elevated. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting outfit. And
she had clothes on. That was a sign right there. She had clothes on.
Yeah, she had clothes on and she had on tennis shoes. And I was like, oh, she's
right.
Very comfortable. Very space looking though. Like,
and beautiful.
I'm going to space, but I loved it. I don't know the brother's name on Twitter, but he was really, really harsh about commentary. I wanted to see more and blah, 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 blah. And people were kind of like, she was pregnant.
I was like, yeah, you can't get any more than that.
What else did you want her?
You want her to give birth? Like, what did you want?
Like, yeah, like people really want a lot. I'm like, you wanted more than you could give. So that's the weekend y'all did.
I gotta ask you a question though. How do you celebrate Super Bowl? Because I know this is a holiday for many of us, and whether we love football or not, there's something about the excitement in the air. And do you host a party?
It's the excitement. No, definitely not hosting a party. Now I'm not doing all of that. Now we did go over to a good friend's home and had a great time.
Yeah,
but that was it. I mean, and to be quite honest, we kind of jetted out after the Super Bowl performance. I mean, really, that's what it was. The game was good. It was a good game.
It was, but we do have to talk about the commercials for a second.
Yeah, let's get into the commercials.
I go there for the commercials. I'm all about the commercials, and I was very disappointed this year.
I don't know what was going on with the commercials. It was kind of like, I don't know. It was very interesting. Now, Doritos had a good commercial.
It's all right.
I like the Doritos commercial. That's the only one I remember. And I remember the Doritos commercial because it had the animals in it and they were really cute. And I was like, oh yeah, well, they got the animals. They won. Right. But nothing else really stood out to me other than the commercial that had P. Diddy in it, because he, of course, had a lot of artists in the commercial. And so you remember the artists, but I don't really remember what they were doing.
Well, there was the Michelob commercial with Serena.
Oh, I do remember that one.
There were the dog commercials, and this is the first time, I believe, that they had a commercial about Jesus.
I thought I saw two commercials.
It was two, and it was the first time, I believe.
And they were very tricky because I was like, one of them was giving me. Let me not go there. It was giving me Slave Plantation movie. I mean, music, and it was throwing me off because I'm like,
what is this?
So what version of Christ are we pushing on people during the Super Bowl? That was interesting. It was giving me slavery. It really was, and I was just like, why are we confining Jesus to this? But it was interesting. It was
Yeah, it
interesting.
was. It
The
was.
commercials were.
It was very interesting. It was very flat this year. Nothing stood out like you mentioned before. But I do believe that we are kind of at that point in our lives where we see such great talent and creativity throughout the year. So people don't really look forward to Super Bowl commercials like they used to because they're getting great stuff throughout the year.
Yeah, they really are. And I mean, the movie premieres, concert, like all of these, and people are so creative. And I think that
Yeah,
these platforms are allowing people to share their creativity and, the development of these commercials. Are they really connected with everyday people to
right.
get their exciting thing going, the next big thing going? It's really
Yeah.
happening with everyday people on their own social media platforms. So that was the Super Bowl wrap over the weekend. Um, it's a very interesting conversation too. I was going to shout out churches that I saw doing jerseys and getting people engaged with it, and coming into the church, and it's interesting. It
Yeah.
is interesting how we do connect to certain holidays. I would love to see the fanfare for holidays like the Super Bowl, other holidays that we jump on the bandwagon to, but we still haven't jumped on the bandwagon for Juneteenth, and we still haven't jumped on the bandwagon for Kwanzaa. And I'm still kind of aloof to that because I'm like, Kwanzaa is something that really would help more of our people come out of poverty. Maybe we would see a little bit more of people with better character development and life skills, walking around in our society. But we're not there yet. Maybe some of that excitement will jump behind those holidays. Who knows? But that's
Well, and it's kind of in preparation for what we're going to talk about today, which is love. But we have to remember that there's certain things that unite us as a people, where sports unites
yeah,
us, entertainment and music unites us. You see this with the Grammys, you see this with the Oscars, well, kind of with the Oscars, but you definitely see this with the Grammys, and you see this with sports teams. So that, to answer your call to action, is like, well, we got to find out what people like. Everybody likes that. They set aside a lot of their differences.
yeah. I think they said that there was a significant number of people, of course, watching the Super Bowl, and then if you weren't watching the Super Bowl, what were you doing? Which was the big question. And
Yeah.
somebody actually addressed this. I want to say maybe it was the news early this morning, and they were like, when they did the poll, and of course people were watching the Super Bowl, but the next two biggest things that came up were people were reading,
Yeah.
and I said, thank God, because those are going to be
Right.
the people that really help us. Lord, help us. They were reading, and then the next group of people or bucket of people were spending time with their family, not watching the Super Bowl, maybe doing their own game day, maybe having their own family time. But families were gathered together, having a good time, not watching the Super Bowl. So those were two areas where people were engaged outside of the Super Bowl. So I
And
thought
it's
it was interesting.
Valentine's. Yeah, it's Valentine's Day weekend. Somebody was out there going to the restaurant.
Restaurant and to the shopping. We gonna get to.
That's right.
I'm big. Oh, these holidays are so tricky to me. But neither here nor there.
Yes.
We are gonna get into that in a moment. So the weekend was awesome.
Yes.
A lot of different things that are going on. Of course, it's February, and it's like after Super Bowl, after this week, which is Love Week. Tomorrow is the big Valentine's Day. I think I refer to Valentine's Day as Love Day.
Love it.
And I'm just very perplexed around Valentine's Day. But we're going to get into all of that a little bit more, but I'm just putting a pin there. Very perplexed around Valentine's Day. But I think today's conversation is going to be spicy because y'all are not going to be ready for some of the things that I have to ask and
Oh,
get off of my chest for Valentine's Day. But as always, we want everybody to win in the morning time. And so Dr. Danny is going to bring us our affirmations mixed with a little inspiration this morning as we brighten up your day to start off the week. So, of course, I would be remiss if I did not say this. We are moving to YouTube on the beginning of March. March 6th, definitely, but the beginning of March, we're going to be moving to YouTube. But while you are watching, if you're watching this live on Facebook, on your way to work, getting connected, go ahead and tag 5 people into the conversation, like and share this out because we're going to get right into it. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Dr. Danny so she can do what she does best and bring us our morning affirmation. And she's going to mix it in with a little inspiration too.
good morning. Thank you so much, Jason. All right, and I love you, Jason. I love you so much. So, speaking of love and much, I was inspired by really understanding that I may not have everything I need in order to give to others what I really want, but I do have enough to give to those who don't have what I actually have. So that is my inspiration to really encourage those today who feel like they have to be in a different position, a better position to give something of value, and you yourself are of value enough. Here is the affirmation. Ooh, I needed some coffee this morning. I might not have much, but I am still standing. That is enough to be someone's motivation. That is enough to be someone's inspiration. What I have is simply enough. That is the affirmation this morning.
What I have is simply enough. Now, let me tell you, that is the affirmation, the inspiration. That is also the answer to the big question on today. Knowing your self-worth. I am enough. What you bring to the table is enough. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. And maybe that's some motivation again, going out to people who are going into the workspace, specifically people who are going to be working around other people who
Yes.
they can see being marginalized and cast out and not included. So teachers, those who are working with seniors, shout out to Lily's Foundation. I mentioned this because I'm thinking about the seniors at Abernathy Towers who today I'll be going by this to drop something off to let them know that we are thinking about them and love them. Those seniors said something to us last month that still is standing with me. Some of the seniors, we have family, they may come visit us here. We have family near us and they may come visit us once out of the year. But for other people in community, senior villages and senior communities, a lot of these seniors don't have families that come to visit them. So when you think about, tomorrow is Love Day, Valentine's Day, and, we automatically think that, oh, everybody's getting a Valentine, everybody's going to be shown love. Well, here's the reality that there are seniors across our nation who are in senior villages and communities, and their family members don't show up to see them. No
Wow.
one is showing up to see them. One of the veterans, but he's also a grandfather at Abernathy Towers, talked with me about 15 minutes at our last visit. And he was like, this means so much to all of us because for some of us, no one comes to visit us ever. So
Wow.
these visits mean that much to us, just to know that someone that is not related to us, that is not coming in here trying to take advantage of us, that's not
Right.
coming in here trying to prophesy to us or prey on us. But these are just people who are volunteering to come in to eat lunch with us and have a good time with us
Nice.
for the lunch hour. And that is a small token of what we can do every day to remind people that they are enough, that they are worthy, that they are seen, and that they are valuable. And so, Dr. Danny, I really, really appreciate you highlighting the importance of self-worth in the moment of affirmation because that is the meat of it. That was the big takeaway right there as she sips her tea. That was the big takeaway this morning. So I hope that you guys really, really, really receive that. Now, Dr. Danny, we got some time this morning. I'm excited about our big question and what we're focusing on this morning because this is a big. It's now last week we brought it to y'all with trust. What's trust got to do with it?
Yes.
That was our big question last week, and it's leading us up to the question today, which is this. Now, this is where I miss JT because this is where the big question would be,
Like
you
on the
know,
screen.
it would be on the screen and it would be all chiseled up and ready to go. And I would be like, okay. But our big question for today is who's a soldier for love?
Ooh.
Who
Mm.
is a soldier for love? I like that. Oh, who is a soldier for love? We're talking about all things love today, of course, in preparation for Valentine's Day. I refer to Valentine's Day as Love Day. But our big question today is who's a soldier for, who's a soldier for love? Now, let's get right into it. We're talking about all things love. If you are tuned in, go ahead and let us know your thoughts. But Dr. Danny, we'll go ahead and kick it off. Who's a soldier for love?
Well, I gotta say thank you, Sade, for that song. I used to play that song to death. I loved it so much. And I love this because I am speaking from the single perspective and you are speaking from the other perspective. Like you are not single anymore.
No, no,
Shout out
no.
to your better half who's on here.
I
And
feel like I may be the better half, though. I think I'm the better half.
how about two good halves?
Oh, two good halves.
Hey,
Yeah,
make a good old
that was
hole.
good. But see, that's what we go wrong too, because we always think, wait, that's the better half, so now you got to be the worst half. Let's just have two good halves,
Two
and
good
then we come
halves.
together to be our best selves. I
That's
don't know.
right.
Let's
That's
try to
right.
let's try to switch it up. Let's try to switch it up. But yeah,
But to be a soldier for love, I'll say I am still a soldier for love. I could get beat up here out in these battlefields, but I tell you, I'm still a soldier for love. I still believe, and part of my belief system comes from learning how to love myself more,
mm,
learning how to love the Creator in the way that He wants us to love Him and to acknowledge Him. But also, too, because of the examples I've had around me. And I mean, like that old love. Those
mm,
old, you talked about your singers. You ever see those couples? I know your parents are a couple. And you see those singers that just, I mean, they had to fight sometimes, but all in all, you see that love wins. So that is like, I look to the other generation to be inspired and to see that they are the real soldiers for love. And let's understand, being a soldier for love, like when you love, is you're loving in spite of, you're loving beyond what the challenges are. You can show up and find love even after y'all have just hurt each other's feelings. Y'all are finding love even though one might not be right, one might be wrong. You are a soldier for love because love is winning. This is the I Win Morning Show. So you are
mm.
finding ways for love to really, really win in your lives.
Now, we're going to go into love today, y'all, because
Yeah.
this is really important. So, love encompasses a range of strong and positive emotional and mental states from the most sublime virtue or
Mm,
good habit. This is what is taught to us. Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to teach this morning. This is what is taught to us. We are taught that love is an intense feeling of deep affection. Deep affection is fondness, tenderness, warmth, intimacy. Uh, Another
That sounds like
definition of
lust.
love:
That almost sounds like lust, but keep going.
a great interest and pleasure in something. For example, his love for football. Similar, liking, weakness, okay, partiality, bent, leaning, okay, inclination. These are synonyms of love. Now, this is all that was love as a noun. But I think people forget that love is also a verb. Now, this is the ELA teacher in me. I love this aspect because, see, this is how we should really be teaching love to our young people and the next generation. Love has a variety of things that it can be. It's a noun, it's a verb, it's also an adjective because it
Mm-hmm.
describes, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a verb, it says feel deep affection for someone. He loved his sister dearly. So that's the example of love as a verb. I just love dancing. because I like or enjoy something very much. Now, I'm sharing this because, Dr. Danny, I have to ask you and those who are tuned in, and if you are tuned in, connect some other people to this conversation because this is important. The definition of love says this, and I want us to really challenge our mindset around what is love and how does love connect to God. Love encompasses a range of strong and positive emotions. That's it. So if love is only positive emotions, then what are the negative emotions that come with love? Do we automatically assume that that is hate? And that's what I want to make sure I draw that connection there, because if love is positive emotions, then do we automatically assume that our negative emotions are hate? So I want us to just start off with, what is love? What is the definition of love?
So that's a lot right there, because I think there's a difference between what we think is love and then what we know is love is what is proven or what lasts. Does that make sense?
No, that's good.
Okay. Because the outcome, even over the obstacles and hurdles, is that you still feel that feeling you were just talking about. You
Yeah.
still feel that same way about that person, even after things get a little shaky.
Ooh, shaky. Let's go to shaky now. Let's go to shaky.
Right. But
This is good.
This is where I go back to, true love wins because beyond the circumstances, beyond the challenges, it's what still shows up. Can I still say, even though he got on my nerves or she got on my nerves, but I still love him? Can you still say that?
That's good. That's good. Yes, that's good.
But that is the question. I think you should ask yourself that question. If the person does X, Y, Z, would I still say I love that person?
Yep, that's good. And it lends us to love being conditional and unconditional.
That's right.
And agape love, God's love, is unconditional. And so my next question would be, are we striving for God's love, which is unconditional, or are we just striving for love? Because conditional love is not bad either.
Right.
Unconditional love seems to have a more deeper connection to understanding the fruits of the spirit, where I can be forgiving, I can be patient with others. I think about special education teachers, those who work with kids who have indivisible, who have physical, who have mental disabilities, and having that consistent patience. Now, I've taught in special education and general education, so there's a difference. There's a different level of patience that a special education teacher has to encompass, because it's an understanding of the fact that this child learns differently. There's something different that's happening here, and it requires a different level of patience, of love.
Yeah.
So it is it's a big question. A big question. We're talking about love today, everybody. So the comments went from boom, 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 boom to now I feel like everybody is listening to grab some nuggets from us. And yes, we dropped some good gems, but we are asking a question of everyone, because we are challenged with this too. Who's a soldier for love? And it's a good question, because you got to start with, what is love?
This is where you have to cling on to your ancestors too, because grandmamas and granddaddies and those who probably are no longer here in your lives anymore, they really did love unconditionally. They showed us how to love unconditionally. Those are the real soldiers. And I think part of what we see in them is, I see in love as strength. And I don't mean strength as, we talked before about being physically strong, but strength and showing strength to be able to look beyond yourself, to sacrifice, to also, when we talked about trust last week, it's something that over time is built and learned how to show love. And what love really does do is, it is that also unspoken language. It's like, somebody loves you, whether they say it or not, by what they show you. And I think that's, again, what people definitely overlook sometimes. They'll say, you ain't tell me you love me. Tell me you love me. and
Yeah.
that's a level of insecurity too. But on the other end, when somebody's saying they need to hear it because words are so powerful, as you know, that sometimes people need to be reassured that what you're doing in love, and that is the motivation. So I
Mm.
think you hear both sides. You hear that people need to hear it more, and some people need to show it more, and there needs to be that balance.
Balance. I love that. Good morning to all those who are watching live. Please like, share, tag others into this conversation. I have a lot of questions around love because I don't think that we are hitting um, the hammer on the nail in regards to what love is. And I think that our ancestors
Mhm.
struggled with this too.
Mhm.
Because as I look at over times, we have families that are doing love very well. But then we also have this ongoing question around the church, around spirituality and what we are being taught. Because
Yeah.
in one breath, when we're in churches, we hear about the love of God or the God that we subscribe to, because God shows up in different forms too. Although some people don't believe that. If God is all knowing and all powerful, I'm pretty sure God was like, if I don't want to be bored watching the same thing, let me create different ways for people to connect with me. That's just what my mind would say. Thinking about God and how we all connect to God differently and what love is, I think back to this question, and I want to go down this road for a few moments. Who teaches us to love? Who shows us what love is? And I keep referencing Webster's definition of love because two things come up: the strong affection, um, the strong feelings for other persons, places, or things, built out of kinship, but also built out of personal ties and connections. And then there's another aspect of love that is based on affection, tenderness, and sexual desire. And I'm asking the question around who teaches us to love, because the church, our spiritual foundation, plays a major part in who is deemed worth loving in our community. And so
Woo.
I want to kind of get a feel from people of who taught you to love. Because as we think about Love Day being tomorrow, it's Valentine's Day. Let's think about all of the numbers of people who are going to feel like they are not loved. Specifically, let's start with people who are single and not in relationships. That's the area where people are made to feel like, oh, if you're not connected with someone, um, then you aren't loved. But let's be even more specific, because the church, in particular in America, and really not, that's not just limited to America, the church across the world tells us that love shows up as a man and a woman is married, and this is what love is. So if you don't have that, then you don't have love. So love shows up in a myriad of ways. And let's think about how on tomorrow, when hundreds of thousands of children are going to be going into schoolhouses, they're going to be going into recreation centers where people may not subscribe to the notion of love that they may be used to or acclimated to, or they may not even know. They may have never had a genuine experience with someone who has invested in them. So, who has taught us how to love is another aspect of this conversation that I think is worth uh, talking up just a little bit.
Yeah, when I'm hearing you say that, I think it's easier for us to determine what love is not.
Mm,
Because I think for many of us, it's hard for us to clearly define what love is. And true to your point, if you're not sure if you've ever really been loved, you don't know. And I think all of us are walking around here assuming that people love us.
okay.
Um, and our interpretation of love is different based upon the dynamics in our families and our lives. You know, we're
Mm-mm.
talking about tradition, you're talking about, what love is supposed to look like for us. It's the cookie cutter act of love. And
Yes.
then, I find that if you need a designated day to show that you love someone, then maybe you didn't really love that person like you think. I don't
That's
know.
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, Danny, you bring up a good point, because we also have to realize this, that love in America is has been always rooted in capitalism.
Right.
So Valentine's Day, then there may have been a desire to elevate love and to make sure that people felt love on the, identified day of February 14th. But
Right.
let's be honest, February 14th was a day for people to capitalize off of love, because who makes the most money during the season of Valentine's?
Right.
Candy companies. Who owns these companies? Let's be honest. Let's go down this
Right.
road.
Yeah.
Who owns the candy companies? Who is making all of these bears and cute, stuffed
Yeah.
animals that people are
Jewelry.
getting
Yeah.
for today? Then you have the card industry that
Yeah.
everybody's getting the card. These are industries that are seeing an increase in their revenue during a certain season. Okay, think about all the advertisements that have to be created, and then the notions of, think about therapists who
Yes.
make their money during the season, because now you have people being preyed upon, they're being made to feel as if they're less than, because if
Mhm.
I'm not married, I'm not loved, or if I am loved by someone but it's not approved, by the status quo, then here we all are rushing to counselors and therapists, running the preachers at the church who are
Yeah.
also getting. Y'all don't want my reality, because reality is Valentine's Day was created for people to be taken advantage of. I
Mm.
mean, that
Love of
is
money. The love of
essentially
money.
love of money.
Yeah.
There is that element of this as well. So how do we show up authentically with loving people? And it's a struggle,
Yes, it
because
is.
every day on the news we see violence that, again, when I was highlighting the definition of love, it seems as if there are two angles of love, because there's positive emotional and mental states that are connected to love, but we also know science is real. Science teaches us that if there is a positive, there's a negative. So what are the strong negative emotional and mental states that people go to that may cause anger, that may cause violence, that we see that shows up? How
Right.
people are, they call them crimes of passion, where I was in love with this person, but maybe they were beating me, or they were abusing me, or they were cheating on me, or taking advantage of me, or whatever that was. And there was a switch there. It
Yeah.
went from positive emotional and mental states to a negative emotional and mental state. So how are we really dealing with that? And are we dealing with that, or are we putting band-aids on that? Because again, that makes money.
I just feel like with love, you find people who have a love for a cause, and they love
Hmm.
that cause more than they love people themselves. And I
True.
never understood that. Like they'll die for a cause, they'll kill for a cause.
Yep.
And that kind of passion is so it's uncalculating for me, because I would never I mean, I can't imagine myself dying for a cause, or loving a cause more than I love a person. And in that, even loving myself, like there's this lack of imbalance, like you were talking about the chemistry or whatever. But it's like there's something not right about that.
Yeah.
There's something not right about the energy that drives you to love something more than to love someone.
Yeah.
And if you are loving a cause, then why can you not love God? Because God does not teach us to hate people. We manipulate that. We manipulate religion, where it's about talking, on behalf of God, which God doesn't need us to talk on behalf of him, but we go and we use his quotes, we use the scripture to again validate the love of a cause. The same people that are telling you don't have abortions, are killing, are promoting um, gun approval of guns, and that is to kill people. And it's like, so I mean, people use that word love so loosely.
Oh yeah.
And I will even say, not just even in the church, but religion. When somebody says to you, I love you, they're loving you like Christ. I don't even think half the time some of them believe it themselves, what they're saying. It is just
True.
out of condition and out of practice to say, I love you. Like when you say, God bless you. Do you really mean that? Do you really
Yes.
mean that? When you say I'm praying for you, do you really mean that? So I look at love in the same way. It's like we're saying these words, and how we use these words are greater weapons than the weapons themselves.
That's good. That's good. And I don't believe that it's generalized. I don't think that
Mm,
we all have the same opportunity to love, but we don't all have the same capacity to love. I think those are two different things. We have the access to be able to love, but we may not have the capacity to put those actions into words, or to put those words into actions.
yeah.
And it varies because it's multiple sides to this. I love the comment that Miss Jackson made. My parents first, then God, then my own experiences. And then I
Yeah.
think about people who come from varied homes and varied family situations. And so our families play a major role in what love looks like for us. Dana goes on to say that actions need to match the words. And
Yes.
it is that consistency, it's that
Mm,
connectiveness, it's that intentionality about love. And I want to throw this into the conversation too. Um, Ray loves the Indian culture. He has a lot of close friends that are a part of that culture. And when I think about their belief around love, um, in their culture, they believe that the purest form of love is selflessness.
mm,
And we all know a selfless person. Um, I would I would say that in my circle, I would be that person. I know I'm that person. I take on that attribute from my ancestors, from my great grandparents. I saw how they were selfless. I would never forget my great grandfather Poppy. He was the only black person who had a garage in Portsmouth, Virginia, same place that Missy Elliott grew up at. Uh, and her kid folks would stop by. Everybody stopped by to talk to Poppy because they knew that this is the old man, deacon, veteran who had a garage. And a lot of black people on that side where my grandparents stayed, they didn't have garages. He was the only person who had a garage. And so I think about how he selflessly had conversations with neighbors and people and poured into them and prayed with them and helped them when he could, because his life motto was, if I could help somebody as I passed along. I saw how my great grandmothers, before there was hospice care, I did not understand what it meant for the elders in the community to come to the homes of someone who was sick or had a ailment, and they may have been transitioning, but
mm,
having elders there who came and made sure that they were bathed and made sure that whatever fluids they could have, they were having, or they were, able to eat, or they were connected to community. They didn't let that person feel alone. And
yeah.
so selflessness, are we in positions to do these things now? Yes, but the bigger question is, are we doing these things?
Right.
And so we have to challenge ourselves to love in a different way. When we have family members that get older, are we willing to take care of our family members, or are we putting them in senior homes?
Right. Those are
If
the
our
real soldiers that you
Those are
put.
the real questions, so these are the questions that you have to ask. So
Yeah.
caretakers who have an humble spirit, because there are people who are caring for people and they're not doing it in the right spirit. So let's be honest about that too, because just because you're caring for someone doesn't mean that you're doing it in the right spirit. But when we know somebody who's doing it in a pure form, to say, I'm caring for this person because I want them to be better, because I want to show them love, because I want them to know that they are loved. Like,
Right.
those are two different, it's your spirit. And you have to be chosen and called to do that.
Absolutely. I love something that Letitia Jackson says often, which, and shout out to you, Letitia, for watching, is that saying, I love you to death. I love her spin on it because she says, I love you to life.
Yeah.
And we have to truly, really, love is about speaking life. Love is about, being, wanting to see the best, give the best, but also being honest about that. And when you're speaking life into someone, well, the irony of I love you to death is similar to Valentine's Day in my eyes, which is, again, it's conditional, and What happens after the 15th is gone and it's the 16th? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, what happens? What is love after Valentine's Day?
Now let me throw this out here because researching love, all of these books, so it's so much to talk about with this conversation.
Yes.
A question that has come to me is, what is a bigger feeling than love? And
Mm.
ironically, the only thing that keeps coming up that is a bigger feeling than love is a feeling of loss. And I was like, wow, how powerful is that connection? And even in loss, that love is still present. Is something that is so intriguing to me. But these are just things that are coming up um, from YouTube comments. Shout out to those who are watching on YouTube, already connected to YouTube. Don't forget, guys, we're moving to YouTube. Now, when we think about this, the agape love, the unconditional love, again, going back to where we connect to these things. And Dr. Danny, I'm still stuck in the area of it's so much more to talk about with
Yeah.
love in this conversation because we are a rare percentage of people who have a foundation where we are rooted in families that come from a history of love and spirituality. My mind is going to always my students and this current generation. One of the facts that I bring up often is that this younger generation, Generation Alpha, especially Generation Z, more than 80% of them are not connected to a church. They're not connected to a spiritual foundation because their parents may have, stopped going to church, or they weren't connected, or did not expose them to the church. They don't have
Yeah.
a connection there. And so I'm challenged by, how are the masses of people going to be connected to love if they have not been connected to a church, or they don't have a spiritual foundation? And so as we're thinking about love, God is a big part of love. But
Yes.
if that's never been activated in you, because you have to, sometimes you have to get things activated.
Right.
If that type of love has never been activated in you, I'm just thinking about when we keep seeing the increases of violence, when we keep seeing the increases of domestic violence in homes, from husbands to wives to husbands, to parents to children.
Hmm.
That violence is happening in the households has
Yeah.
also increased. The love
Hmm.
of money, the love of guns has increased.
Yeah.
So where love should be coming from a centered, agape love, unconditional love, forgiveness, patience, gentleness, it's now rooted in the love of money, which means that if I love money, then if I have to get on TikTok and, shake my behind, then that's what I'm going to do, because TikTok, social media, has let people know that you can be affirmed and you can be loved here by likes and like by
Yes.
numbers. It's a numbers game. Like, how many people are liking you? How many people are viewing you? So think about
Mhm.
the millions of people that are now being pushed down that pathway of trying to find love in an artificial, unauthentic way. Because
Yeah.
those likes and those numbers, when they go down and they go away, then
Yeah.
do you feel like there is no love? There is nothing that's possible. Let's think about young people and children who, again, if I only see violence in the home, if
Hmm.
I only know that, oh, well, maybe, you know, Big Mama and them, they love me because they cussing me out, or my parents, they love me because they're cussing me out and they telling me that, I'm less than and I'm ugly and all of these things that they may even hear from adults at school
Yeah.
tell them, that how do they really have a strong foundation for love? These are the conversations around love that we're not having. And so I'm just putting these out here as
Yeah.
feelings for people to think about. And then now, what do we do to absolve this? What do we do
Yeah.
to reach these people?
Mhm.
Are I'm gonna ask my last question next, but go ahead, Dr. Danny, because I got a question for you that I want to see your thoughts on.
I love what you just said. It's really it's tricky because who are we to judge how other people love?
Mm,
I believe once again it's about how you have been raised. And if how you have been raised is that people show me love by what they say, or that they even talk to me and acknowledge my existence where I don't feel like I exist anywhere else, then I believe that that is an indication that I am loved. And so, you know, we have to understand people's interpretation of love is different. And
mm.
all of there's some of those areas where you can say that's not the right form of love. Again, you have to understand, but in that person's mind it is, because that is the only love they have been shown. So I even think with that we have to really gauge our love conversations, and to tell someone that they don't know what love is, and we're all out here trying to figure out what it really is. We have to come back to that. I'm a soldier for love, but
Okay.
but again, it's because I've experienced love in a certain way, and it's the only way that I have experienced it. But it's not the same experience as someone who was raised in a different way experienced it. So
That's
I
good.
have to really understand where they're coming from, and they have to understand where I'm coming from. When I've dated people who have not lived or been raised in like a, again, traditional household with two parents who've been married for almost 50 years, that doesn't mean they don't know what love is. It means they may understand what love is differently. They
That's
may
good.
understand love from a single parent household. They may understand love by the relationship they had with that one parent. So I have to understand love can show up in different ways. But what I go back to is it's easier to say what love is not.
Hmm.
It is always easier to say what love is not.
I love that, Dr. Danny, and I feel like you've highlighted two important things. We all experience love differently, and our foundations are also different. When I think about my parents, my dad was raised by my great grandmother Lily, who lived to be, almost 105 years old, and so she was real old school.
Right.
So that was my dad's upbringing, and just to hear how my dad would talk about, there were times when we didn't have TV, and so we would have to do other things around the house, play games, or you know have conversations. You had to be engaged outside of technology to really build relationships. My mom was raised by her grandparents. My great grandma Lily, she was a missionary, and my grandpa Poppy was a deacon, and who would always challenge me. He didn't get baptized until he was 75, but he always challenged me on this notion around love. Do you think that a good man can make it into heaven? And I never really understood that until I got older, because as I engaged with people, I understood that, wow, there are not really too many people that I would say, wow, that's a good man, or that's a good woman,
Right.
like good people.
Yeah.
And I think that the church would challenge that, because you have to go through certain rituals in order for them to feel like you are tried and true, tried and true, right? You are a real saint. But I also feel like it's in our character, it's in what we do, it's how we show love. And I think that is the biggest testimony and takeaway, for this. And I also, want us to be just a little bit mindful of this. If no one has ever taken the time to truly invest in us and really show us what unconditional love is, and how would we know how to reciprocate that? And so that's
Yeah.
something to think about. Now, Dr. Danny, I'm looking at the time, and I know we've had a really heavy conversation around love, inspired by Rihanna and her All Red, because she had to remind us that there's a deeper meaning to love. And I just know that was a huge thing carrying her as she is floating up in the air, pregnant with her child. And I couldn't even imagine what's going through her mind. Like, now this is cool, this is good,
Right.
but it's something that's keeping my mind present with, like, okay, but y'all get me down from here, right? That's that trust, that belief, that system of love that I got to come down and be able to take care of this child.
Right.
But I want to ask you this, Dr. Danny, as we get ready to close out. And this is a heavy question, so I'm almost like, I want to save it, but I'm gonna ask it because I know.
Ask.
with such a decline in families that are being connected to churches, not just Christians, but whether they're in mosques, faith temples, etc., so forth.
Mm-hmm.
For those who are a part of different religious beliefs, we are tasked with being the light of the world.
Yeah.
And my question is, are we prepared to be the light of the world? If people aren't coming into the church and it is now our responsibility to be that light, do we have the light on? Maybe that should be a big question. But do we have the light on in order to be able to love people? And I'm asking that just off of what we're seeing every day in our society. Are we the light? Are we able to show up and love people so that they can really see what love is?
I mean, do you see the light yourself? Or are you shining darkness? Like, it's like, are you spreading hate or love? I think it's a similar question. You first have to be able to see the light yourself.
That's
as
good.
You bring people as churches are known for being a place where it's a house of hope, where people are coming, they're hurt, and they need to be healed. And so when they're coming in, are you coming to greet them with the hurt that you yourself have inflicted or has been inflicted upon you? Or are you coming and just saying, you know what, with the compassion, I understand where you're coming from. Let me be the light to show you hope. So I think you have to first look at yourself and see what light are you shining?
Yeah, or is your light on?
Is your light on?
That's good. I mean, you have to do a self-check and make sure your light is on. Yeah. Because if my light is on, people already are gonna know, all right, now, Professor JBA, he ain't gonna play the radio with this. And I think that is true. Your light has to be on. It has to be a constant reminder to people. Are you going to be bold enough to show up, to speak up, to say something, to do something different than the status quo? Love is not an easy thing. It's not just it's not just to put in the microwave and go. It's not. You can't just microwave it and say, ta-da, voila, boom, boom. You can't just do those things and love shows up. You have to put in the work.
That's right.
To love. It is definitely an energy that is given off. And again, lust is also connected to love. And if that's all you know,
right?
I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that it is a aspect of love that should not. Oh, that's a whole nother conversation too. I'm hoping that Danny and JT gonna be ready, because I brought my book, and maybe we'll talk about this next week. Because Elin Harris's book, it deals with the light of the love and the lust and the attraction part, and who teaches us who to love and how we should love, and why do we think that a lot of the things that come with love are bad? Like sex is bad. I think that it's not taught that it's bad, but it is taught that, I know coming up in the church, we didn't have strong conversations around that. We're going to get to that in another conversation. But just how are we taught to love? Who are we taught to love? Why are certain aspects of love taught to us as being bad? And then the shame that comes around, I have to have an abortion, or, I need to get contraceptives, but I'm too afraid to ask because I am being told that this is a bad thing. So it's a lot that goes with love, and who's been told they're wrong and who's deemed as right and who's doing the teaching. And so many of us are learning, and there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do when it comes to love.
My last 2 cents are this: there is fear that is accompanied by love. And there's fear of hurt, there's fear of pain, but there's also fear of just the unknown with love, because love is huge. Okay.
Yeah, love is huge.
But I would say this for all of you out there who are listening: there are 5 love languages, the 5 love language book. And I would encourage you to really look deeper into what is your language of love. There are different, we talked about this earlier, how some people perceive love. It might be acts of service, it might be the words, it might be gifts, whatever it is. Search what your love language is, because you have a love language and you might have several, But start there, because then you can find somebody who complements your language, understands your language, or even with those who don't understand your language, maybe it's thing you can figure out, well, maybe that's not the person that really loves me the way that I need to be loved because of the language I respond to.
That's good. That's good, Dr. Dan. That's a good way to close us out too. Learn your love language. Remember that yes, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, Love Day, right? But
Love
we
Day.
receive love every day. We should be giving love, receiving love every day.
Yes.
And not just to people that we are in relationship with, intimate relationships with, or whatever terminology you may want to use, because there's intimacy in all types of relationships. So we may talk about this again next week, just uncovering more about love, because that within itself is like, what? Like, who has taught us that passion, that intimacy, that love, it's in one direction, and how do these things connect to our everyday lives? So we may pick up this conversation next week with JT. I will be excited to hear his thoughts on some of these things, and just also how people are feeling after this week of love, right? It's gonna be so interesting. But this has been our show today on what's our big question, Dr. Danny, because we got to give a shout out to Sade.
Who's a soldier for love?
Yeah. Who is a soldier for love? Are you a soldier for love? Do you have your light on? Because if you're a soldier, that means you got to be able to protect, but you also got to be able to love. You got to know what to do. That's a whole nother conversation too. Y'all come back next week for the next part of this as we talk about, who do you love? Do you even love yourself? You can't love anybody else if you don't start with yourself. We may talk about all that next week. But y'all, thank y'all for being here with us on today. We're wishing everybody a great week. Yes. But this has been the I Win Morning Show with Dr. Danny and I. We love y'all. We're going to see y'all next week. Peace and love.